you think focusing on yourself is selfish. That is the lie that has been costing you everything. Stop. Right now. Before you scroll past this, before you go back to checking someone else's story, someone else's life, someone else's opinion of you, I need you to hear something that most people will go their entire lives without understanding. The most powerful decision you will ever make is not a business move. It is not a career choice. It is not even a relationship decision. It is the decision to finally, completely, unapologetically focus on yourself. Welcome to the Shetty Mindset. And in the next 30 minutes, I am going to show you exactly what happens mentally, emotionally, neurologically when you make that one decision for just 30 days. Not a year, not a decade, 30 days. And why those 30 days will change the trajectory of your entire life. Here is what the data tells us. A landmark study from the University of California found that the average adult makes over 35,000 decisions every single day. And the overwhelming majority of those decisions are made in response to other people, what they think, what they want, what they might say, what they might post, what they might judge. You are living someone else's algorithm. And here is what that is doing to your brain, to your energy, to your momentum. It is draining the most sacred resource you have, your focused attention, and scattering it across 100 people who are not building your life, not paying your bills, and not lying awake thinking about your dreams. In this video, we are going to go through 5 transformational truths about what it truly means to focus on yourself. We are going to talk about your energy, your identity, your silence, your discipline, and your rise. Stay with me until the end, because what I share in part 4 will completely change how you see every relationship and every distraction in your life. This is not a pep talk. This is a blueprint. Let us begin. There is something nobody tells you about the person who is always available for everyone. They are usually the most unavailable person to themselves. Think about the last week of your life. How many hours did you spend responding, reacting, accommodating, people-pleasing, over-explaining, worrying about what someone thought, scrolling to see what someone else was doing, or adjusting who you are to fit into a room that was never built for you? Now ask yourself, how many of those hours went toward your own vision, your own goals, your own silence, your own becoming? Most people, when they are honest with themselves, realize the ratio is devastating. And here is what psychology tells us about why this happens. Dr. Susan Fiske at Princeton University has shown through decades of social cognition research that the human brain is hardwired to monitor social threat. We evolved in tribes where being rejected meant death. So our nervous system is constantly scanning. Am I approved of? Am I included? Am I safe? But the world we live in now is not a tribe of 40 people. It is 7 billion connected, comparing, commenting constantly. And your ancient brain is trying to manage approval from all of them. It is exhausted, it is overwhelmed, and it is pulling every ounce of your focused energy away from what actually matters. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." That line is 2,000 years old, and it has never been more true than it is right now. Think about the athlete who trains alone before sunrise. Think about the entrepreneur who quietly builds while others debate. Think about the person who disappears from the social scene for 6 months and then reappears as someone unrecognizable, not because they changed who they were, but because they finally became who they always were without the noise. That is what 30 days of focus can do. Ask yourself this and be honest. If no one could see what you were doing for the next 30 days, would you still be making the same choices? If the answer is no, then you are not living your life, you are performing it. And if you have felt this, if you have felt the weight of living for other people's eyes, you were not wrong, you were not weak. You are simply waiting for permission to come home to yourself. You are allowed to focus on yourself. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to build in silence. But here is what nobody tells you about what happens when you actually do. When you reduce external noise and social stimulation, something extraordinary happens inside your brain. It is not what most people expect. Most people expect silence to feel peaceful, and eventually it does. But in the first 72 hours of pulling your attention inward, the brain panics, it reaches for the phone, it invents problems, it tells you that you are missing out, it tells you that people are talking, it tells you that you need to check, respond, perform. This is called the default mode network. And neuroscientists at Harvard Medical School have found that when this network is overactive, it is directly linked to anxiety, rumination, and a reduced sense of personal identity. In other words, when you are constantly in reaction mode, you literally begin to lose your sense of self. But here is what happens after 72 hours of intentional self-focus. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for purpose, planning, and deep decision-making, begins to activate more powerfully. Research from Stanford's neuroscience department shows that reduced social media use for as little as 10 days leads to measurable improvements in attention span, emotional regulation, cognitive clarity. 10 days. Imagine 30. The Stoics understood this long before neuroscience could prove it. Seneca wrote, "Retire into yourself as much as possible, not as an act of arrogance, not as isolation, but as an act of self-mastery." The warrior who does not know themselves is the easiest to defeat. The person who cannot sit in silence cannot hear their own truth. Here is an analogy I want you to hold on to. Imagine a phone, your phone, with 47 apps running in the background. The battery is draining at triple speed. The screen is lagging. The processing is slow. You are frustrated. You feel like the device is broken. But it is not broken. It is simply overloaded. When you close those apps, when you stop running every other person's program in the background of your mind, your own processing speed increases dramatically. That is what self-focus does. It does not make you selfish. It makes you functional. It makes you powerful. It makes you clear. What are you running in the background of your mind right now that is not yours? And if you have felt scattered, if you have felt like you are never fully present, never fully focused, never fully yourself, you were not wrong. Your system was just overloaded. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is where you find yourself again. And this next part, this is the part that will shift everything for you. Identity is not something you discover. It is something you build, deliberately, daily, in private. Most people are waiting to feel different before they act different. They are waiting for motivation before they create discipline. They are waiting for confidence before they take action. But the psychology of identity change tells us the opposite is true. Dr. James Clear, building on the foundational research of behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner and modern identity theory by Dr. Wendy Wood at USC, has shown that identity is the output of repeated action, not the input. You do not think your way into a new identity. You act your way into it. Every time you choose your work over distraction, you are casting a vote for the identity of someone who is focused. Every time you wake up when you said you would, you are casting a vote for the identity of someone who has discipline. Every time you choose your vision over someone else's validation, you are casting a vote for the identity of someone who is intentional. 30 days of those votes. And the result is undeniable. Here is how the 30 days work in practice. The first week, days 1 to 7, is the hardest. This is the withdrawal phase. Your brain will resist. Social anxiety will increase temporarily. You will feel the pull of old habits, old distractions, old loops. This is not a sign that you are failing. This is a sign that you are changing. The second week, days 8 to 14, is the clarity phase. The noise begins to settle. You start to hear yourself think. Goals that felt abstract become specific. Time that felt scarce begins to expand. You start to notice what actually matters to you, separate from what others told you should matter. The third week, days 15 to 21, is the momentum phase. Your new habits begin to compound. Your discipline begins to feel natural. You start to produce, whether that is creative work, physical progress, financial planning, or spiritual clarity. Something is being built. The fourth week, days 22 to 30, is the transformation phase. You look in the mirror and you see someone slightly different. Not in appearance, in presence, in certainty, in alignment. The person who began this 30 days ago and the person standing here now, they are not the same. There is an ancient Buddhist teaching that says, what you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create. 30 days of intentional self-focus is not a trend. It is not a challenge for social media. It is a sacred act of self-creation. Think about a sculptor. Michelangelo was once asked how he created the statue of David. He said, "I simply removed everything that was not David." That is what these 30 days ask of you. Not to add more, but to remove everything that is not you. What would be left if you removed every habit, every distraction, every opinion, every relationship dynamic that was not aligned with who you truly are? And if you have felt lost, if you have felt like you were living a life that looked right but felt hollow, you were not wrong. You were not broken. You were buried under everything that was not you. You are not starting from scratch. You are starting from truth. But here is what nobody tells you about the resistance you are going to face. This is the part that most people are not prepared for. When you begin to focus on yourself, truly focus, not everyone will celebrate it. Some people will call it selfishness. Some will call it arrogance. Some will pull away. Some will test you. Some will create drama designed to pull your attention back into their world. And some will do all of this without even realizing it, because your growth is a mirror that reflects their stagnation. And this is not about blame. This is not about judgment. This is about understanding. Psychologists call this social homeostasis, the tendency of our social systems to resist change in order to maintain equilibrium. When one person in a group begins to evolve, the group unconsciously applies pressure to bring them back to the familiar level, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. Research from the University of Virginia's Social Dynamics Lab has shown that people who undergo rapid personal development often experience a temporary increase in social friction precisely because they are changing while their environment has not. In other words, the resistance is proof that it is working. Jay Shetty has said, "When you protect your energy, some people will call it distance, but what you are really doing is creating the space to become who you are meant to be." I want you to understand something deeply. The people who truly love you, who truly want your best, will adjust. They will be curious about your growth. They will eventually be inspired by it. The ones who cannot tolerate your evolution were never invested in your destination. They were invested in your compliance. You cannot rise while still managing the comfort of people who are not rising with you. This does not mean abandoning relationships. It means protecting the energy that your growth requires. It means being intentional about where you pour your most sacred resource, your focused attention. Because attention is not just time, attention is life force. Attention directed outward, endlessly, reactively, is life force that will never return. Think about a tree. Its roots go deep before its branches go wide. No one criticizes a tree for focusing underground before it produces fruit. But people will criticize you for doing the same thing. Let them. Who in your life right now is pulling your attention away from your own roots? And if you have felt the guilt of pulling away, if you have felt torn between your growth and your relationships, you are not wrong. You are not selfish. You are simply learning the most important boundary of your life, the boundary of your own energy. Protect what you are building. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your transformation. Stay with me, because what I am about to share in this final part is the most important insight in this entire video. Intention without structure is just a wish. So let us build the architecture. Let us talk about exactly what these 30 days look like, not in theory, but in practice. Because the gap between knowing and doing is where most people live their entire lives. And today, that gap closes for you. Neuroscience tells us that habit formation is not about willpower. Research by Dr. Anne Grabiel at MIT's McGovern Institute has shown that habits are encoded in the basal ganglia, a deep, ancient part of the brain that operates on automatic loops of cue, routine, and reward. When you design your environment intentionally, you are literally redesigning the neural architecture of your daily life. Here is what your 30 days of self-focus looks like. Morning, the sacred hour. The first 60 minutes of your day belong entirely to you, not to your phone, not to notifications, not to someone else's newsfeed or emergency. Your first hour sets the emotional and neurological tone for everything that follows. Use it for stillness, meditation, journaling, movement, or silence. This is not optional. This is the foundation. Midday, the alignment check. At some point in the middle of your day, lunch, a break, a walk, you pause and ask yourself one question: am I building or reacting? If you have spent the last 4 hours building, creating, producing, progressing, you stay on course. If you have spent 4 hours reacting to emails, to drama, to other people's urgency, you recalibrate. This single check-in will transform your productivity. Evening, the investment window. The hours between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. are where most people waste extraordinary potential. These hours are spent scrolling, consuming, comparing. Reclaim them. Use 1 to 2 hours each evening for your most important long-term investment: your skill, your vision,